Good evening. Welcome to Turner Classic Movies. I'm Ben Mankiewicz. Tonight, we celebrate the bold and influential career of a wonderful friend at TCM and a defining director of his era, William Friedkin, who died on August 7th, nearly 3 weeks shy of his 88th birthday. William Friedkin, Billy to everyone who knew him, was among the trailblazing filmmakers who rose to prominence out of the cinematic revolution known as the New Hollywood, which began essentially in 1967 and thrived throughout the 1970s. Friedkin's most vital contributions to this era of directorial freedom came on consecutive pictures. The second came in 1973, when Warner Brothers released his groundbreaking horror film, The Exorcist, to spectacular reviews, enormous profits, and considerable controversy. 2 years prior, Friedkin had his first box office smash. That's the movie we have up first tonight, the Best Picture winner of 1971, from 20th Century Fox. Gene Hackman and Roy Scheider star in The French Connection. Billy Friedkin's direction in The French Connection is pure 1970s New York grit, driven by a New Yorker's sense of problem solving. Just get it done, forget the rules, then apologize later. Shot in the style of a renegade documentary, The French Connection won Friedkin the Oscar for Best Director. Gene Hackman, whose performance earned him the Academy Award for Best Actor, stars as Popeye Doyle, a New York narcotics detective who puts the anti in anti-hero. He's violent, vicious, a racist, often behaving as brutally as the criminals he hunts. Roy Scheider, Oscar-nominated himself, plays Doyle's partner. The screenplay by Ernest Tidyman is an adaptation of Robin Moore's book, which detailed the true story of two NYPD narcotics detectives, Eddie Egan and Sonny Grasso. Their pursuit of the French leader of a drug syndicate simultaneously becomes a heroic investigation and an alarming descent into lawless recklessness by the NYPD. That balance is what makes The French Connection such a consistently compelling movie. The film's most enduring claim to fame, the chase scene, is arguably even better than the car chase from Bullitt. William Friedkin believed if you were going to have a huge car chase scene in a movie just 3 years after the brilliant 11-minute sequence in Bullitt, you needed to make it better or die trying. According to Friedkin, who admitted the scene was far too dangerous, it's a minor miracle that didn't happen. Most of those near misses and crashes you'll see in the chase are real. Tonight, we're pleased to bring you the original theatrical version of the film. From 1971, also with Fernando Rey, this is William Friedkin's The French Connection. As I mentioned before the movie, The French Connection was director William Friedkin's first major contribution to the New Hollywood movement, which began in 1967 as a new generation of filmmakers sought to replace the more formulaic storytelling of the studio system. Certainly, we don't mean to disparage the studio system here at TCM. It produced hundreds of quality movies that are the backbone of our programming, some of the best films ever made. But the studio approach that created so many great pictures between 1929 and 1959 saw its power dissipate rapidly in the 1960s. Hollywood seemed unsure how to make movies that comported to the era of the civil rights movement, the sexual revolution, the women's movement, and the Vietnam War protests. William Friedkin and his contemporaries, which included directors Francis Ford Coppola, Martin Scorsese, Peter Bogdanovich, Mike Nichols, Brian De Palma, Steven Spielberg, to name just a few, were telling far more radical stories than American movie audiences were used to seeing. They used their skills to make pictures that intentionally lacked the gloss of traditional big studio productions. Many of the directors considered part of that group went to film schools like UCLA, USC, and NYU. Friedkin, on the other hand, couldn't afford college, so he learned his craft the old-fashioned way, by doing it. Friedkin's gift for authentic storytelling is what helped make The French Connection a groundbreaking film. 14 years later, Friedkin directed a thrilling parallel to The French Connection set on the West Coast. William Peterson, Willem Dafoe, and John Pankow star in perhaps my brother Josh Mankiewicz's favorite movie, To Live and Die in L.A., directed by William Friedkin, is next on TCM. Hi, I'm Ben Mankiewicz. Welcome to TCM, where we're in the middle of a tribute to one of the most significant American directors of his generation, William Friedkin, who died last month at the age of 87. In the 1970s, Billy Friedkin, everyone who knew him called him Billy, emerged as one of the top directors in Hollywood. He secured his legacy in his mid-30s with two consecutive pictures, The French Connection from 1971 and The Exorcist, released 2 years later. Both films won multiple Oscars. Friedkin won Best Director for The French Connection. If there is a downside to making his legacy-defining films back-to-back early in his career, it's that their success can overshadow the rest of Friedkin's career, which includes a number of top-notch movies, and we have one of them up next. It's from 1985, To Live and Die in L.A. Based on a novel by former U.S. Secret Service agent Gerald Pedovich, To Live and Die in L.A. is a fictional story based on Pedovich's experiences tracking down a counterfeiting ring as a Secret Service agent. As a reminder, since its inception in 1865, the primary mission of the Secret Service has been to protect the nation's financial infrastructure. Only later in its history, 1901, did the service add protection of the country's political leaders to its mission. William Friedkin loved Pedovich's book. He co-wrote this adaptation with Pedovich. The story follows a Secret Service agent, played by William Peterson, who relentlessly pursues an elusive and deadly forger who's been printing counterfeit money. To Live and Die in L.A. has often been compared to Friedkin's earlier film, The French Connection, and with good reason. Both center on corrupt detectives in obsessive pursuit of their targets. Both movies also feature stunning, groundbreaking car chase sequences, one with a car chasing a subway train in New York, this one on the freeways of Los Angeles. In both cases, William Friedkin set out to cast lesser-known actors in the lead roles. After giving Gene Hackman, who was not Friedkin's first choice, a big break with The French Connection, Friedkin worked with the same casting director, Bob Weiner, on To Live and Die in L.A. Weiner suggested relative newcomers William Peterson and Willem Dafoe for the leads. Here's the film from 1985, also with John Pankow, Deborah Fuhr, John Turturro, and Dean Stockwell. To Live and Die in L.A. No matter how many times you watch To Live and Die in L.A., William Peterson's murder near the end never fails to deliver a shocking emotional impact. The car chase sequence still delivers as well. I got to discuss that scene with director William Friedkin when he joined me here on TCM a couple of years ago to introduce the film. He said that he refused to include a car chase in To Live and Die in L.A. unless the scene could top what he'd already done in The French Connection. In the end, Friedkin felt he did top it. To Live and Die in L.A. premiered in 1985, and it gave Friedkin's career a much-needed boost after a decade of critical and commercial disappointments following The French Connection and The Exorcist. Though he made some films that are now highly thought of, Friedkin failed to make movies that combined box office success and critical praise when they were released. Sorcerer, now rather revered, was a box office flop in 1977. Friedkin's 1980 thriller Cruising, starring Al Pacino, was known more for the heated controversy regarding its depiction of gay men being targeted by a serial killer. Like Sorcerer, Cruising is now seen in a much more positive light. To Live and Die in L.A. was the kind of hit Billy Friedkin badly needed, and its reputation has only gotten better over the years. Ahead tonight, one of Friedkin's earliest films, an important work of queer cinema from 1970, adapted from a play by Mark Crowley. The Boys in the Band is next on TCM. Hello, I'm Ben Mankiewicz. Thanks for joining us on TCM as we continue to honor director William Friedkin, loyal friend to TCM over the years. Friedkin, who died just over a month ago, began his career as a filmmaker in television at a local station in Chicago, where he started directing short documentaries. His first was from 1962, The People vs. Paul Crump, about a prisoner on death row. The doc, which included allegations that Crump confessed only after police officers beat him, was considered too incendiary in 1962 to air. Nobody in Chicago or anywhere else saw it, with the exception of the governor of Illinois, Otto Kerner. The general manager of the TV station sent the governor Friedkin's film. He watched it and then commuted Crump's sentence, sending Friedkin a note that Friedkin kept all his life. I was extremely moved by your film, it read. I've decided to commute Crump's sentence to life in prison. The event led to Friedkin getting a chance to direct narrative television, including an episode of Alfred Hitchcock Presents in 1965. In 1967, Friedkin broke into feature filmmaking with the Sonny and Cher musical Good Times. Friedkin described it as unwatchable. He followed it up with two big-screen adaptations of powerful stage plays, Harold Pinter's The Birthday Party, and the movie we have next from 1970, The Boys in the Band. It's an adaptation of a seminal play by Mart Crowley that took New York by storm when it premiered off-Broadway in 1968. The action takes place over the course of a single evening in a New York City apartment where a group of gay men get together to celebrate a friend's birthday. As Friedkin recently described the plot, it starts out as a fun night and then it disintegrates into one of the outer rings of hell. The Boys in the Band is a fascinating character study and was a particularly daring film when it premiered. The original stage production opened just a few months before the Stonewall riots, and the film version hit theaters 2 years later, with the entire cast reprising the roles they'd created on stage. Playwright Mart Crowley personally chose William Friedkin to direct after seeing his adaptation of Pinter's The Birthday Party, and Friedkin remained faithful to Crowley's play. Instead of opening up the action, Friedkin kept it confined to the events at the party in the apartment, just as it was on stage. The movie became a landmark of queer cinema while also showcasing the range of William Friedkin's abilities, especially when you place it alongside the movie he made next, The French Connection. This is from 1970 with an ensemble cast led by Kenneth Nelson and Leonard Fry, The Boys in the Band. The Boys in the Band was director William Friedkin's fourth feature film, and he always remembered it fondly. "We had nothing but fun," he said in a recent interview. "It was a party every day. At 5 p.m., I would stop and we'd serve drinks and snacks, and we'd have a party for real, so that those guys became so tight and had so much fun playing off each other that it translated on film." He added that the movie was very controversial when it premiered in 1970, but things have changed so much since then. The movie, he said, has become a period piece. In 2018, the play was revived, finally brought to Broadway in honor of its 50th anniversary. The cast of the Broadway production was led by Jim Parsons, Zachary Quinto, and Matt Bomer. And just like the 1970 film, the entire stage cast reprised their roles in a new film adaptation produced for Netflix in 2020. Coming up, another adaptation of a groundbreaking play written by Harvey Fierstein with a cast that includes Anne Bancroft and Matthew Broderick. Torch Song Trilogy, directed by Paul Bogart, is next on TCM.